Hello and welcome to In Conversation With. I'm Liz Lumley from Finextra, and today I'm speaking to Paul Stoddart of VocaLink. And you're the head of the new division at VocaLink called Strategy and Business Development. And it sort of is part of this new division. It's going to flavor our conversation today. We're going to be talking about the digital payments revolution and what customers are looking for from digital payments and what role banks will play in this new environment. So to sort of start off our talk, I wanted to get into some research that VocaLink has just completed, and you're putting together the findings right now, looking at what people in the UK want from digital payment services. So can you give us some of sort of highlights from the findings from this research?
Thanks, Liz. I think VocaLink felt that, we certainly feel that our reputation for innovation in the market was something we wanted to continue with into the consumer digital space. And as a consequence, we thought it was a good thing that we spent some time and some of our resources with customers, asking them how they wanted to interact with devices in this digital age. You talked about the revolution. It feels like we might be in it. I'm not sure we're quite in it yet, and I think that was exactly why we decided to speak to people about it. If you go back 4 years, none of us were using mobile banking services. The first part of the research that we finished last year said that now nearly 20% of us are using mobile banking services. So we're getting there, and consumers are starting to take the new technology into their arms. But now I think it's about what can they do with it and how can that fit into their life.
So yeah, you mentioned that the digital payments revolution, we might not be sort of in the middle of that revolution yet. And I think a lot of people feel that way because there isn't sort of one payments method that's become ubiquitous across in the consumer market. Why do you think that is?
I think if we look at ourselves today, cash can be used pretty much everywhere. And we've become very comfortable with carrying cash with us. However, we do have to remember to go to the ATM or to go to the bank to take cash out. And increasingly with cards, that they're now used in a number of channels. So cash becomes something we have to remember to do. So when we started to compare the uses of cash and checks for things that we buy, and the number of us that are now carrying smartphones and other digital devices, first of all, we found that 1 in 6 of us, 60% of us now carry a smartphone. And when you drop that to the 16 to 25-year-old age group, that increases to 80% of us. So we've got some very interesting dynamics. We've got an increasing penetration of the technology, of the channel that will allow us to do more. And we've got that now coinciding with different payment methods available across different channels. So the ubiquity perspective that you raised is the important aspect here. Consumers told us that they wanted a method of payment that they could use irrespective of channel and irrespective of location. And the mobile device is a very convenient and personal device to us. And we felt that that probably provided the best channel and the best device through which to start to centre our payment needs.
So Paul, but what benefits does this type of payment solution really give to the consumer?
Okay, so we talked about the need for ubiquity, and I think that's the first and most important benefit. Today we can use cash for pretty much anything, so any new payment system has to be as ubiquitous. People have to be able to use it pretty much wherever they may in previous times used cash. So certainly the scenarios that we took customers through, they were on the move on their mobile or on their tablet, buying from retailers, digital downloads or digital products as well as physical products and having them delivered to their home. If they're at home on their PC or even on their smart TV these days, they can complete the same types of transactions. Certainly if they want to receive their utility bills or ad hoc bills from those utility providers for extra services, movies and pay TV type worlds, or gas and electricity, etc. If they're on direct debits, they can view those and make sure they've got funds available, or they can pay one-off amounts as they see necessary. And obviously for the sole trader as well, who's doing work at your home or in another location, when he's finished what he's doing, he can send a request to you and receive payment for that immediately without having to chase around and find the bit of paper that he wrote what he'd done for you on, and follow up with you for that payment. So those were the use cases we took people through, and some very clear responses came back. We want to use the same system that we use cash and check for today. It has to be able to be used everywhere, otherwise it's going to mean we have to do something different in one part of our lives, which isn't as convenient. Right. The second thing was, we don't particularly want to share our bank details with a third party. So if there's a way in which we can receive a request for payment and authorize that payment without our bank details being shared with those third parties, then we feel very comfortable about doing that, and that plays very strongly to the security and trust element of the service. And the third thing was, actually, these days, budgeting is very important, and we want to be able to check whether we've got enough funds available when we want to buy something. So being able to see the balance of our account, or the account we choose to make payment from, whilst we're making that payment, or indeed just before we make that payment, helps us with that budgeting and forward planning, and we can make funds available in the account as necessary and then complete the transaction. Giving consumers that flexibility, the convenience, simplicity and flexibility of the solution were really the themes that came through.
It's interesting you brought up small businesses and tradesmen. It's sort of a group that traditionally hasn't been well served by banks. And when we mentioned the research VocaLink put together earlier on in a conversation, some of this research came out that consumers are looking for these payment solutions from their banks. So, but why are banks in a good position to provide for this market?
The main reason is trust. I think we all go through periods of our lives where our relationship with our bank can be a little difficult, but ultimately one of the prevailing trends with our relationship with our banks is that we trust them. And that came through very strongly in the research. Consumers said, they trust their bank and their bank's brand. These are new devices, these are new channels that obviously the younger age group are very comfortable with, but not all age groups are as comfortable with using new digital channels and the internet and electronic means of communicating with their banks. So the research very clearly said consumers would use this. Certainly, I think 81% of customers that we spoke to who were familiar with the technology and were using the channel said that if their bank brand was on this, then they would be very, very likely to use it. So there was that key trust element. In addition, I think they see the ability to budget and manage their funds and their accounts as being quite important when they're making purchasing decisions. So what they very much liked about the service was their ability to see, for example, the balance of their current account at the point at which they're making the transaction, which is something that really only is enabled through these new channels of communication. So as I'm about to buy something, I can see whether I've got sufficient funds in my account. I can make the necessary transfer.
So that interaction with the customer that you don't get from cards or cash.
Absolutely. And if you then combine that level of interaction with the ubiquity of the usage, so whether it's bill payments, whether it's sole traders, whether it's shopping at a retailer on your phone, or whether in a physical store, the ubiquity of channel combined with the real-time information and the real-time payment creates a very convenient and compelling proposition for the consumer. What we also found was that played particularly strongly to women. We found that men were very comfortable making decisions based purely on the technology, if it looked good or it was cool. But actually we found a lot of the women with families and young children that they made decisions based on the real benefit to them, to their daily lives. We got very, very strong responses from women about convenience, simplicity, and how it was, how they were able to integrate this behaviour into their lifestyle, because it really didn't ask them to change very much, and that was quite important to them.
Yeah, that's not surprising to me. That's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.